like, and my parents never like told me, oh, you're limited because of your race and you're in a quote unquote foreign country or anything like that. Like, I don't know. I don't know if that's a good thing that I grew up that way or not. Because I mean, there seems to be a lot more talks about race and ethnicity and kind of, making sure that you understand that today. I don't know.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? I mean, because I think about it now. I have a kid, right? And we're gonna hopefully, God willing, continue to have others. Like, to be honest, I haven't made up my mind on how I'm going to raise my kids and introduce that aspect of things.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it's you can't do exactly what your parents did because
Right.
times are evolving. So it's not the same world. And just to kind of before I jump into that, that's why there's a lot of organizations nowadays that do inclusiveness and diversity and all these different programs to show that they understand that there is some type of issue with allowing different races to come together and to come into organizations, right? So that's why diversity programs exist and trying to be more equal opportunity, which those didn't exist when we were kids, right? So it was a lot tougher for our parents and family to be able to get into some of these companies when those programs didn't have their eyes open to those issues that were happening, or maybe they did and they didn't care, right? We don't know what all these different companies were thinking at the time, but it is good to see that diversity is something that comes up quite a bit, and it was one of the things when I came to my new company, that diversity, inclusiveness, and that not only do they say they do it, they actually have awards in it, from Forbes magazine. That just kind of stood out to me. Okay, they're not just saying the right language, they're actually doing something about it, which to me just stood out and was somewhere I want to be. Being that I've worked in a lot of companies where they say diversity is important, but when you look around at the people that work in the company, you don't see the diversity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when it comes to raising my daughter about talking about diversity, and so my wife is white. She's got Dutch background and some other things as well. But so my daughter doesn't appear to be Hispanic or anything. She's just very light-haired. She's fair, and being Puerto Rican, that's kind of normal too, right? There's a lot of different, and a lot of Latinos. There's a lot of different colored skin you can have to be one or the other. So for her, I just don't know if she will have to go through the similar types of things that I had to go through, or that my parents had to go through, which doesn't mean I don't want to educate her about it and have her understand the importance of her background and who she is. And if people see you this or don't see you as this, you still need to understand the importance of it, because that is who you are, right? And to understand some of the difficulties that your family and your generations before you had to go through as well. So, so yes, I will teach her, but I don't know if she'll have to go through similar types of obstacles. And hopefully organizations keep evolving with time, but only time will tell.
Right.
Well, what are your thoughts as far as raising kids around that?
Man, to be honest, it's tough because I look back, and again, I think back to myself and even my wife, and I think that to an extent we never saw the world through that lens. Like, we never were really, like, we wouldn't go out at night and be in fear that, we would get stopped, or, we would go out to a restaurant and we wouldn't think that, if we got a bad service, it was because we were Hispanic. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. So, we went out with one of my mentors. I think I've mentioned him before in conversations, but he's darker skinned. He's Dominican as well. We went to this restaurant in New Hampshire, which is primarily white, and it's a red state, etc. And we went there, we had our food and everything else, and after the meal was over, he had a few comments that he made about, like, the service and some of the things that he noticed.
Mhm.
But my wife and I didn't notice that, but it's because, we just don't see the world in that way. And maybe we hadn't had those experiences in the past. My wife is darker than me, maybe a little bit of similar complexion than he is, but he's had, encounters where he's been stopped and, he's been racially profiled and et cetera. So, it's very tough to think and see, what is really the best approach, because you're both him and I were both raised in the same city, Lawrence, and he had a completely different experience than I did, but yet he is a little bit darker than I am. So it's kind of tough to gauge. And I mean, this world right now with all the race conversations and everything that's going on,
Yeah.
it's definitely difficult to see what the right path is. I mean, definitely it's going to be out there. It's going to be prevalent. I'm sure my kids are going to ask me questions. But the one thing that I know for sure is that I am never going to tell them that they're limited because of their background. That's the one thing, because if I've learned anything is that and hard work and being goal oriented can get you far regardless of if there's any prejudice against you. I mean, talent is talent. Any company is going to look at you. Yeah, maybe one will pass on you, but I guarantee you there's going to be companies that are going to pick you up because you're able to do the job better than anybody else. And I've seen that as well in the jobs that I've been able to attain. And I think that instilling some of that work ethic that my dad had, that I learned from him, in my kids, I think that those things will trump anything else that whatever prejudice they may encounter out there. I think, because I mean, even my dad, he's never made more than minimum wage, and he owns his property, and he's doing a lot better than a lot of people that have been living here their entire lives and have had jobs that pay him well over minimum wage.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I agree. There definitely should never be a conversation of you will be limited. Whether you're female or whether you're male, that shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter your background. None of that should matter. That has nothing that should put a ceiling above you that tell you that you can't achieve something, right? There's plenty of examples of different people that have of every race, all the different sexes, all of it. No, it doesn't matter, tall, short, any of that kind of stuff. Different ages, right? People that start their careers later in life and get opportunities, right? There shouldn't be anything that's really holding anyone down. Now, I do see that sometimes it could be an obstacle, but an obstacle is just an obstacle. Go around it, right? So, but it shouldn't stop you, right? It's not a wall that you can't somehow get over. So that's to me, the big lesson, right? There may be obstacles in life, and some of them are fair, some of them are not fair, but it's just an obstacle. Go around it, find different ways, different means to get where you need to get.